I've always said that I'm a helicopter guy. There's something about them, the precision, the control, the ability to land pretty much anywhere that just felt unbeatable. But today, something shifted. After thousands of hours flying both airplanes and helicopters, and after years of chasing every kind of mission that I could, one flight in this Cessna 180 changed everything. Hey, I'm Brett. Flying isn't just about where you're going, it's about where you can go. From rugged backcountry strips to the edges of the map, I'm chasing adventure, one landing at a time. So buckle up and come along. We are cleared to adventure.
Cessna 904 Alpha, radar services are terminated. You are cleared to adventure.
Hey guys, Editing Brett here. One of the questions that I get all the time is, when are you going to be launching merch? And the truth is, I hate the word merch. It sounds cheap, and I don't do cheap. I've been working on this for months, testing shirts and hoodies through Real Flying, Real Wrenching, and Real Alaska. We've spilled avgas on them. We've had friends pack moose meat in them and flat out beat the hell out of them. 4 suppliers got fired before I found one that actually held up. So now, just in time for my 500,000 subscriber mark, I'm launching the first 2 official designs: the Cleared to Adventure logo tee and hoodie, and the Runways Are Optional line, designed by Aurora herself and tested in the wild. These are small batch, built to last, and once they're gone, they're gone. Check out the link below in the description or go to clearedtoadventure.com and grab yours. Let's get back to the video.
Before I was ever a pilot, I was a boater. Some kids grew up in the backseat of a car. I grew up on the deck of a boat. I actually don't remember when I learned how to sail. I've been doing it so long that it feels second nature, so I know I was really young. By elementary school, I was driving ski boats. And even now, my wife and I still own a competition ski boat that gets more hours of use every summer than most airplanes. I've sailed sabbats, driven 40-foot sport fishers, water skied behind pretty much anything with horsepower, including an actual horse. And I've even crewed a pirate ship. That's not a joke. My buddy Captain Mike owns a legit pirate ship. Cannons, sails, rigging, the whole 9 yards. And if you've seen many videos on this channel, you've seen me paddling around glaciers or diving into polar bear enclosures. You already know that water has always called to me just as much, if not more, than the sky. So when I started looking for a new airplane, there were a few non-negotiables. At the top of that list was that it had to have a float kit. I got my float rating in 2022 down in Moose Pass, Alaska, with a DPE named Brad Holt. That turned out to be more than just a check ride for me. It was the start of something so much bigger. 3 days after getting that certificate, while the ink on the paperwork was still drying, I went out and bought Phil the Float Pacer. That airplane became my way to blend 2 parts of myself, the boater and the pilot, and it opened up a world that helicopters couldn't land in, and wheelplanes couldn't access.
Connect traffic, white, yellow float pacer operating tow the connect, low level. Alrighty. Yeah, buddy.
But as much as I love flying Phil, the truth is that we're a growing family, and I need something bigger that can handle more weight, more gear, and more adventure, which is how I ended up with this Cessna 180. I don't know if you've noticed lately, but I have been attempting to fly the wings off this plane. In the 3 months since I bought it, I've logged 120 hours in it, learning how it handles, getting comfortable on wheels, and then counting down the days until the lakes thaw and float season begins. That day is today. this was my final flight, my final landing, my final taxi on wheels, for now. And there was no better way to send it off than with a landing at one of the busiest cargo airports in the world. As it turned out, Lake Hood was closed, but since I have ADS-B on the 180, I was able to get a clearance into Anchorage's Class Charlie airspace and then land at Anchorage International on a runway about 10,000 feet longer than what I actually need. Landing on something that massive in this small of an airplane really can mess with your depth perception. It's like paddling a kayak in a shipping lane. Anchorage is the 4th busiest cargo airport in the world. It's the 2nd busiest in the United States, right behind Memphis. Its location makes it a vital stop for trans-Pacific freight. Fresh seafood, perishable goods, live animals, they all pass through here because of how efficient and well-positioned this airport actually is. But the real magic is what's happening in the sky above the airport. When most people think about Chicago or LA airspace, they picture pure chaos. Anchorage doesn't look like that on a map, but it is just as complex, if not more complex, than both of those airspaces combined. It is a tight overlapping system of jets, turboprops, float planes, and bush planes, all sharing the same airspace. It's chaos and choreography running in perfect sync. I know that because I used to be part of it. Back in the early 2010s, I was a controller here at this airport. And I can say without hesitation, it was some of the most fun that I ever had in air traffic, especially when Lake Hood Tower and Anchorage Tower were combined. One controller, 2 frequencies. On one, you're launching a 747 going to Incheon. On the other, you're sending a Piper Super Cub on floats out to the Brooks Lodge. There was nowhere else in the world where those 2 types of aircraft operate side by side at this level. The controllers here are some of the best in the business. I've worked at multiple busy air traffic control facilities, and I have nothing but respect for the people behind the mic that keep it all flowing. But here in Anchorage, they don't just separate traffic. They make aviation in Alaska possible. The taxi from Anchorage International over to Lake Hood was one of the longest taxi routes that I've had since I landed Aurora's Bonanza at LAX. Once I showed up to Acme Cub, it was time to pull the plane into the hangar, to pull the gear off, and bring in the floats. But what I didn't realize at the time was that I would actually be there doing the gear swap with Ethan, Jacob, and Steve. 3 guys that have probably forgotten more about airplanes than I've ever learned. Steve runs Acme Cub and builds some of the nicest Super Cubs on the planet. He holds every rating that you can think of. ATP, ANP, DPE, IA, you name it. His son Jacob and I go back to my controller days. Jacob has flown everything from bush planes to commercial airliners. And in the middle of helping me bolt floats to the 180, Jacob's wife went into labor. Their son was born a couple of days later. That hangar is more than a shop. It's full of stories, history, and people who live and breathe aviation. It reminded me, again, why I love this community. The more you spend time in hangars like that, the more you realize how small and connected this world really is. To get the 180 on floats, we had to remove the brake lines and then cap them, and then we had to remove the gear completely from the aircraft. The legs come off with a main bolt in the inner bracket, and then 2 shims per side that are held in with retaining bolts. Once the gear is off, the port chops had to be installed. These actually go into the front gear boxes just like the wheel gear did. One bolt on the inner casting, and then the two shims held in by the retaining bolts. Next up, the plane was hoisted higher and the floats were brought in with a half truck. Once they were lined up, it was time to bolt all of that together with the fly wires. Fly wires connect the top of the floats to the bottom of the fuselage, creating a rigid connection that helps maintain the aircraft's balance and stability on the water. By adjusting the tension of these wires, you can fine-tune the alignment of the wing and the floats, ensuring that the aircraft is level on the water and that the floats are positioned correctly for takeoff and landing. After a long day in the hangar, 1-3 Charlie came out into the sunlight under the power of the half truck and dropped into the busiest seaplane base in the world. And for the first time, I got to fly this airplane the way that it was meant to be flown. Now, I'm gonna level with you. This is going to be the first time that I've flown a 180 on floats. Sure, I have over 400 hours of flight time in Cubs and Pacers on floats, but not a single minute in a Cessna 180. So after getting some quality advice from friends that have 180s, there was nothing else to do but put the fire to the coals and go feel out how this plane felt on the water. As I advanced the throttle, I made note of the sight picture and felt out how the plane felt on step. And then, after a little bit more power, it launched. Not flew, launched. The wing X extensions, the nearly 300 horsepower, and that massive 88-inch Black Mac propeller, everything worked together like it had something to prove. This airplane didn't just get off the water. It wanted to fly. I decided to take the first few landings pretty easy on myself and give myself a ton of water to work with. So I headed about 10 minutes northwest to Red Shirt Lake, where I pulled in 2 notches of flaps and just felt out how the plane wanted to land, holding the same attitude and waiting for the water to come up to me. I pushed the throttle back in and took back off. It was time to knock out a few landings and get comfortable with it. I spent the next 2.5 hours getting to know the airplane again. Takeoffs, landings, turns, step taxi practice, just me, the airplane, and the lake. And when I finally brought it back to Lake Hood and taxied into my spot, I had a smile going from ear to ear. At the beginning of this video, I said that I was a helicopter guy, and I was for a long time. But this Cessna 180 on floats reminded me that sometimes the best flights are the ones that surprise you, and that maybe, just maybe, I can say that I like float planes more than helicopters, and that selling the helicopter was one of the best decisions I ever made. Float season has officially begun. And next week, my buddy and I are loading up for the first camping trip of the summer. I can't wait to bring you along on that journey. Thanks for joining me on yet another adventure. I'll see you next week.
Cessna 904 Alpha, radar services are terminated. You are cleared to adventure.